Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon.
So Garima, tell us about yourself.
Good morning, sir. My name is Garima. I was born and brought up in Buxar district of Bihar. Thereafter, I went on to do my graduation in commerce from Kirodimal College, University of Delhi. Thereafter, I have been preparing for the civil service.
So which year did you pass out from KM?
2020.
2020.
Yes, sir.
This
is my second attempt.
This is your second attempt. So any specific reason that you decided to come in for the civil services?
So the prime motivation why I started doing civil services was because it was my parents' dream. But later on, I realized that the opportunity that civil services provides to make small but significant changes in a large section of population would not be provided elsewhere. And also public interaction in social sector is something that is very close to my heart. So I decided to go for civil services.
It will happen only in case of IAS. Other services are very specialized.
So even if I get other services, it provides me dynamism and diversity to live at different places, to get exposed to different cultures, different states. I don't mind that, sir.
So Garima, I'll take you a little bit across what is happening around the world. Ukraine-Russia war has been in the news. For what? What milestone was covered yesterday?
Russia-Ukraine war yesterday completed 1 year of its military aggression that Russia incurred on Ukraine. And even after 1 year, there has been no ceasefire that has been declared. That is why it was in news of completion of 1 year last year.
And why is nothing happening, you think? Why is no resolution being found?
There are multiple reasons for this, ma'am, I believe. The first reason being that multilateral institutions like UNSC have not been able to play their part well. Apart from this, there are the complexity of the issue itself, because Russia believes that it is an attack on its security, because NATO expansion is something that is attacking on its buffer area concept, whereas Ukraine thinks that Russia is transgressing on its territorial sovereignty and integrity.
Why is it actually going?
Yes, ma'am, Russia is attacking on Ukraine's territorial sovereignty and integrity in violation of the agreed Minsk principles that should have happened but have not happened as yet.
Something similar we find, not meeting or not implementing what has been agreed to along our borders.
Yes, ma'am.
Especially with China.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me something about that. What is happening on our borders with China and why?
On our borders with China, we have issues in 3 sectors: in the western, the middle and the eastern sectors. In the western sector, it's basically the issue of the line of actual control, wherein India and China have differing perceptions of the LAC. And
But border talks, sorry if I may interrupt, border talks have been going on for so long. Why do you think no resolution has been found?
And despite border talks going on, both the countries have not been able to come on the negotiating table because of the strategic location of Aksai Chin as an area, which is very crucial for China because it connects Xinjiang with Tibet province, and also because it is very crucial for India. This is one reason why demilitarization has taken place, but clarity on border talks has not happened as yet.
Because the perception is different. Right. So what happened recently to further aggravate the situation? For some years, everything was fine. Because of what reason was it okay for some years, and now why again have there been so many confrontations in recent years?
Some years, but recently it was in news in 2020 because of the Galwan clashes that took place at the LSE, and recently a few months ago because of the Chinese aggressions in Tawang area in Arunachal Pradesh, it was in news. All of this has been associated with increased border infrastructure that India has been building up, which is causing insecurity in the mind of China.
I thought it was the other way around.
It was also the other way around. That insecurity led China to building up and setting up villages across the border and settling and making settlements all across the border and mobilizing troops, which led to the transgressions.
But what is the basic mindset of China or approach towards this issue? What do we see and why?
Ma'am, I believe that China has a lack of clarity on perception because of the Johnson line and the McMahon line in LAC and the Tawang region respectively. It does not recognize Arunachal Pradesh as an integral part of India, but starts to make settlements and then gives references to McMahon line.
What does it say? It says this is part of South Tibet.
It's part of the South Tibet. And the overall larger geopolitics of China, its five-finger policy is also a part of it.
And so generally, it doesn't want India to, and also doesn't want India to become?
It does not want India to become the most powerful, influential power in South Asia. It wants a unipolar Asia, China. So it wants India to keep itself busy in the border talks, in the border issues, and by also influencing our other neighbors, it is keeping India busy in that, I believe.
Busy or keeping it down? Last question on women's. You've been doing some work on women's empowerment. What do you see in the Indian context? What do you see is the situation now, today, as far as women's empowerment goes?
As far as political empowerment of women is concerned, the position has been improving, but not so significantly. We have improved from 9% of women's participation in Lok Sabha to 14.14% with 78 MPs in Lok Sabha. Apart from this, the Women Reservation Bill has also been introduced and is being deliberated in the Parliament, which would give one-third representation of women. I believe it will happen, ma'am, and it should happen.
For a long time.
Yes, ma'am. It has been pending for a long time, but I think it should happen. There are a lot of concerns regarding to this. The primary concern is that it would be implemented on the basis of rotation in the constituencies. Certain constituency would be reserved for women in one election, and the next election the other constituency would be reserved. So it is being apprehended that the MP who was elected from the first constituency would not work enough because he or she knows that he will not be elected for the second term.
But that has not been approved yet.
Yes, ma'am, that has not been approved, but these are all apprehensions on the basis of which. Yes, ma'am.
Apprehensions, but what is holding it back?
And
Yes,
ma'am,
but so why do you think, what is the basic reason in your view that this is taking so long and they keep shelving it, keep coming up with these imaginary concerns?
Yes, ma'am. And there are issues, there are social and cultural issues that exist. For example, the patriarchy that exists and the lack of social and family support to women, lack of education to women that does not let them demand their rights. Apart from this, the proxy culture of Sarpanch Pati that exists at the Panchayat can also be replicated at the level of Parliament.
You think it is possible at Parliament level to do it? Can the husband come and sit in Parliament? No, Panchayat mein to baith jate hain, but I don't think they can come into the Parliament.
Yes, ma'am, but he can influence the decisions that can be taken by the MP.
Yeah. But anyway, that's your view. Okay.
So, Garima, so you have commerce and accountancy as your optional subject. So, what are the tax simplification steps that the government has been talking about even in the recent budget?
So in the recent budget, the aim of the government has been simplification of the tax and reducing the compliance burden. In view of that, it has given a push for the new tax regime, which would allow for zero taxation if your income is up to rupees 7 lakh, but if you do not claim any exemptions and deductions. That would make it very simple to file the tax and without calculation of multiple deductions that make the task very complex. And this would be the default tax regime. Apart from this, the tax filing procedure, the income tax form would also be a next generation form that would be pre-filled from different details like your PAN card, TDS, etc., which would make it easier for us to fill the form.
So, with respect to direct taxes, so are there any initiatives taken just like GST? Do you see in the near future?
With respect to direct tax, our direct tax code under Akhilesh Ranjan committee is working on the suggested reforms that should take place. So we are working on that.
Oh, will it be a game changer like GST?
Sir, our tax to GDP ratio at present is the lowest among the OECD countries. I think it will be a game changer. It would help us to increase our tax base and also increase our tax collections.
So, what is this term tax buoyancy?
So tax buoyancy refers to increase in tax collections in response to increase in the GDP of an economy. So it is naturally expected that when the economic activities in any country increases, it will lead to increase in profits of individuals, and therefore it should lead to increase in direct tax collections of an economy.
So do you think Indian tax regime or tax rates, whether it is direct or indirect or overall, is it optimal, or you see something more to be done?
So with respect to direct tax rate, the problem that is being seen is that the personal income tax rate, when it goes to income like more than 2 crore, goes as high as 37%, wherein people start disguising their personal income in terms of corporate income and show that as corporate income tax, which leads to loss of revenue to the government. So a rationalization of tax in that terms would help the government to increase tax collection. In terms of indirect tax, especially GST, there are multiple tax slabs that also needs rationalization so that we can come to a revenue neutral rate and we can maintain our tax collections.
So you didn't talk about the tax rate, GST tax rate. Is it optimal, or you see some reduction required, or what do you see?
So at present we have 4 tax slabs, and there are certain goods which are being covered under the inverted duty structure, which is also a problem. So as it is being done in countries like Australia, where we had GST, it should come to a rate like 15 or 15.5%, which will be a revenue neutral rate. So I think the number of tax slabs in GST should be reduced.
Okay. So and with respect to auditing, so do you see any auditing discrepancies that you have observed in the recent Adani issue that has come up?
Sir, in the recent Adani issue, I am not aware of any auditing discrepancy as such, but it was more about corporate governance and corporate ethical responsibility that was lacking in respect of Adani.
So what kind of accounting or auditing manipulations that generally the corporate companies resort in terms of raising investments, or in terms of showing up the revenues or the market capitalization?
Sir, the corporates need to resort to multiple practices. For example, in the Adani case, Adani has been alleged of forming shell companies and holding its share via those shell companies, and then it could increase the share prices in the market and increase its market capitalization. So that is one way of forming shell companies and then owning its share capital. This is also called as round tripping. Apart from this, companies engage in buyback of shares, which also leads to artificial rise in their prices and thereby banking on that opportunity.
Okay. So there are more talks about internal auditing and external auditing. So what do you see? Do you expect that there should be more external auditing in case of corporate governance?
So I believe a strong internal audit mechanism is a prerequisite for a strong external audit mechanism. I believe the internal audit should be done in an efficient manner to find out any loophole that exists in the internal control system, and thereafter only independent auditor can do the external audit efficiently.
So with respect to banking system, what are the major systemic risks that you can possibly see?
So with respect to the banking sector, the non-performing assets is one of the risks that is existing. Apart from this, the lending of banks to large conglomerates like Adani, which talk about the financial health of the country, is also risky at some point of time. These are the risks that I can think of.
And I can see in your extracurricular interests, teaching young kids, and even in the positions that you held as in the school. And you also had operations in an ed tech. So what kind of methodological changes that you vision for the teaching in India, especially keeping in view of the primary kids development?
So with respect to teaching in India, the reform that I would suggest is change in the assessment procedure. The present assessment procedure is based on content memorization and rote learning, which is not in sync with the 21st century skills that are required in our children. So I think the assessment reforms should be such that they are able to assess the holistic development of a child, not only their cognitive skills but also their socio-economic skills, etc.
So, do you see this particular national education policy, the latest one, will it help in addressing this issue of curbing this focus on memory?
Definitely, sir. So the national education policy specifically talks about change in assessment reforms. It has also directed the different boards to change its curriculum in the way it examines the students, and the boards. And this will also bring equivalence in the different boards that exist in India, for example, CBSE and the different state boards. For this, the National Education Policy has made provisions for both finance and functionary that would be provided to schools and teachers to assist them in improving their internal assessment procedure as well as their board examination procedures.
So, how do you evaluate these international schools, CBSE schools and state schooling? Or at least, do you see any parallels, commonalities, or one can learn from the other?
Yes, sir. I think the state boards have a specific, have a little more focus on the state subject, on the history of their particular state. There is one subject that is compulsory that they undertake in their state, and the CBSE has a standard curriculum that it follows, which is followed all throughout India. And I am not much aware about the international boards as such.
So you're from Bihar.
Yes.
So what is the contribution of Bihar in terms of growth rate stories? Growth rate.
Sir, during 2004 to 5 until 2014-15, Bihar was the only state in India which was growing at a double-digit growth rate of approximately 10.5%. And in terms of Bihar is primarily an agrarian economy, and it is the largest contributor of vegetables in India. It is also the largest producer of horticulture crops like foxnuts in India. So in terms of its contribution to the agriculture sector, it plays a very significant role.
Okay, Subrati.
What was Buxar famous for?
So Buxar was famous for the decisive battle of Buxar that was fought in 1764.
So decisive in what sense?
It was decisive in the sense that the British forces were able to defeat the combined forces of the Nawab of Bengal Mir Qasim, Shuja'ud-Dawla and Shah Alam II, and after which the Treaty of Allahabad was signed, which provided the rule of Bengal and entire India. It paved the way for colonization of India. It provided it to the British government.
Okay, and you have been doing career counseling also.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, for a person who is 8th pass, what kind of career counseling would you offer to him? He doesn't want to study anymore.
So there are a lot of opportunities that can be available, but I would still recommend and counsel that person to give his 10th boards, because it is a primary.
No, not willing.
Okay, so then I would try to get him enrolled in different vocational courses based on his interest and his abilities.
Yeah. Have you seen? Can you list 3 such job skill related courses? Have you actually seen the site of National Skill Development Council, or what courses are on offer? What kind of trades are possible?
No, sir, I am not aware of that.
You have never seen?
No,
okay. Can you visualize 3 courses which the person can do?
So the person can go in handicraft and artisan industry.
Okay.
The second area I can think of is agriculture
Okay.
and agriculture related innovation startups. The third area can be event management or hotel management as such.
Okay. I would recommend you look at the National Skill Development Council portal
Yes,
and
sir,
look
sure.
at the sectors. If you are a genuine career counselor,
Sir, I did it for 11th
you
standard
just write it
students.
here. It's a different story.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Did prohibition, has it really succeeded, or it's a failure in Bihar?
Sir, though prohibition was a very novel idea in the spirit of implementing Article 47 of our constitution, but it has a lot of implementation challenges, and that is why we see tragic incidents like Hooch tragedy that are taking place in Bihar, which are claiming lives of many people. So it has not actually succeeded at a large scale. However, it has brought a significant change in the lives of women of Bihar who were earlier facing a lot of domestic violence issues, the siphoning of money from their homes,
Okay.
but now this has been
The
under
Bihar government is one state which has a very large percentage of reservation.
Yes, sir.
In what?
Panchayati Raj,
How much is
50%
it?
reservation.
50%.
Yes, sir.
They did it in which year?
Sir, I am not aware of that.
So has that made a difference?
Sir, it has made a difference certainly, but the problem of Sarpanchpati still exists. However, in the recent year, we have been seeing that with the strengthening of self-help groups, with the more education and empowerment being provided to women, they are actually asserting their authority and are being empowered.
There was a railway exam, NTPC railway exam. There was a lot of agitation. You remember in Bihar?
Yes, sir. It was
Yeah.
1 year ago.
What is NTPC?
So it's National Thermal.
Huh?
National
No,
Thermal.
railway exam. NTPC are non-technical popular categories.
Okay.
That was so what exactly was the issue?
Sir, as far as I remember, the issue was that the examinations were being conducted very late, and the results were also released very late, because of which the years there were gap years in their career.
That was the reason.
Sir, I'm sorry, I'm not much aware about it.
Their issue was that the minimum qualification was 12th or 10th, I don't recall.
Okay.
But they were allowing graduates also to appear.
Okay.
And then later on, what railway said is that everybody can appear in the entrance exam. We can't stop people from appearing. But instead, then later they had a second exam, which was for level 2. There was separate exam. Level 3 there was separate exam. That's what railway had proposed.
Okay, sir.
So what do you have to say about it?
So I think this issue stems from the systemic issue of unemployment that exists in Bihar, and the lack
Do
of.
you know how many people had applied for that exam?
No, sir.
1.5 crore.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, and how many seats were there? How many posts were there?
I'm not aware.
You should look at the data. Okay, yeah. So now tell me, what is your response?
So it stems from the systemic issue of unemployment that exists in Bihar, and the lack of absorption capacity of state to absorb the 58% under 25 youth population that exists in Bihar. And that is why there is a lot of competition for the limited number of posts. And that is why even graduates are ready to take up jobs that are eligible for 10th or 12th pass.
So don't you see this as an example of demographic disaster?
Yes, sir, certainly it is turning into a demographic disaster, and that is why Bihar government has been taking active steps to promote industries in Bihar, to promote food processing industries in Bihar, so that they can absorb the youth and convert this disaster into a dividend.
Okay, but number-wise, are you aware what is the percentage of population in this working category?
No, sir, it is 58% of Bihar's population of 10 crore. So it is roughly 5.5 crores.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So, Garima.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Garima Lohia was an influential figure in the socialist politics of India. In 1937, he formed the Congress Socialist Party.
That's all.
Yes, ma'am.
And you were born on 27th August. Was there any day special importance of this day?
Ma'am, on 27th August, I don't remember, but on 26th August, Mother Teresa was born. So she's one person who was born on.
27th August also has some important dates. Okay, so I can see in our draft with regard to your interest and the hobbies, you said you have gone some essay on legal empowerment.
Yes, ma'am.
So, if I ask you, since you've already read it, what are the important government programs and policies and some legislation for women empowerment?
Okay, ma'am. If we start with the terms of economic empowerment of women, so in terms of workplace, we have the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act.
Is it this name? Is the
Posh.
correct title? Posh is the further wrong title.
Yes, ma'am. Prevention of Sexual Harassment at Workplace, which was an extension of the Vishaka Guidelines.
Sexual harassment of women, bracket, it says prevention, prohibition and redressal.
Okay,
Then Act of which year?
2013.
Correct.
That exists. To further ensure equality at workplace, we have the Equal Remuneration Act, which has been merged into the Labour Code. Apart from this, for the political empowerment, we have the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment. Then in the social sphere, we have the Dowry Prohibition Act. We have the and in the IPC also we have multiple sections like 375, 498, Domestic Violence Act.
Okay. So you study commerce.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you studied zero food set?
No, ma'am, I don't remember.
You must have.
Yes.
You practice outside. Okay, what about the Applicant Partnership and Companies Act?
Yes, ma'am.
So can you just first of all talk about the previous Companies Act
Yes, ma'am.
and the present one?
Yes,
Because that will be totally replaced.
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it? There is
Yes.
no amendment or the replacement. So what are the major those changes which led to this replacement?
Can I take a minute to recall? Ma'am, the one big change that Companies Act 2013 replaced in the Companies Act of 1956 was the process of incorporation of companies, which has been completely converted online via the SPICE platform of Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Apart from this, Companies Act 2013 also established new bodies like NFRA, National Financial Reporting Authority, and it also introduced provisions and safeguards regarding audit. So Section 139 subsection 2, which talks about rotation of auditor, was introduced via the Companies Act 2013.
Okay, what about corporate social responsibility?
Yes, ma'am. The corporate social responsibility was also introduced in the Companies Act 2013.
Can you just differentiate company and partnership?
Yes, ma'am. The prime difference between company and a partnership firm is that the company is a separate legal entity apart from the persons who have incorporated it. So even if the company defaults on any loan that it has taken, the members are not liable, rather the company is liable. However, in the partnership, this concept of separate legal entity does not exist, and the partners are jointly liable for any default that takes place in the partnership firm.
In this one, in the partnership act, they provided different types of partners.
Yes.
Can you just name?
So there are two types of partners, limited partners and unlimited partners. The limited partners would be only liable to the extent of the share, to the extent of the capital that they have contributed. However, unlimited partners, there is no such restriction and they will be liable for the entire loss.
Okay, so who is the present president of India?
Ms. Draupadi Murmu is the present president of India.
So she's the first president of India?
She's the second woman president after Pratibha Devi Patil, but she's the first tribal woman president of India.
Okay. And if we ask the sequence, which number she is on?
I don't recall exactly, but she's the 13th or the 14th.
Okay, who was the first president?
Dr. Rajendra Prasad.
And how is the president elected?
Ma'am, in India, the president is elected indirectly via an electoral college that has been specifically constituted for that purpose, which includes
What is this electoral college consisted of?
It consists of the elected members of the both houses of Lok Sabha, both houses of the parliament, only the elected, not the nominated members. Apart from this, it also consists of the elected members of the Legislative Assembly of the states and the elected member of Legislative Assembly of Delhi and Puducherry.
Why only these two?
Because the other states do not have a significant population to send that representation, and these two have a legislature as well.
Okay, last question. What is this method called as?
This method is called as single proportional representation via single transferable vote. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Garima, how long did you stay in Delhi?
3 years.
3 years. So during that period, or maybe even now, does an average woman feel safe in Delhi?
Sir, in far as the areas that I stayed in Delhi during my college days, I felt really safe in Delhi because there was continuous police patrolling that was done in that area. But there were certain areas which I did not go into because I also had apprehensions and I did not feel safe, especially those areas which lacked last mile connectivity with the metros. So in those areas I did not, but apart from that I feel safe in Delhi.
Any other reason you don't feel? I also asked average Delhi.
Yes, sir.
So of course you were in the North Campus in 7.
Yes, sir.
For an average women,
Yes, sir.
what you said, the last point, connectivity was not there.
Yes, sir.
Any other reason for which a woman will not feel safe while traveling in Delhi?
So there are many areas in Delhi where there are lack of street lights and the lack of CCTV cameras in those areas. So this is also one reason why women in Delhi may not feel safe.
Now tell me, this issue of marital rape
Yes, sir.
criminalized or not being criminalized. What is the status now?
So the present status is that there is a split judgment which was delivered by the Supreme Court in which one of the judges argued for criminalization and the other did not.
What is your opinion? Because I strongly feel that it should be criminalized. And then what is the hesitancy in the minds of the judiciary as well as the parliament not to criminalize?
Sir, I believe that marital rape should be criminalized because it is a violation of the basic dignity and privacy of an individual. So, in that sense, it should be criminalized. However, the hesitancy that exists with regard to marital rape is that the concept of burden of proof, which would be very difficult to apply in this case. Also, it is like the court is entering into the private sphere of a couple. And apart from this, there is also the hesitancy of false cases being made.
That happens in all the cases.
Yes, sir.
Acts.
The other concern is also that it would lead to a breakdown of the institution as sacred as marriage. That is why it is not being done.
This concept of live-in relationship. People say that is also hampering, making dent in the institution of marriage.
So if we look at the effect of globalization in India, the marriage has no more remained as a sacred institution. It is more of a confluence of two individuals who want to partner in and stay as co-equals in their life together. But and this is driven by their choice, by their personal choice and autonomy that they want to exercise.
Family institution is breaking down. Society. Institution of family.
Yes, sir. So there are multiple changes that are being brought by globalization. One of them being disintegration of joint families into nuclear family and also live-in relationship and breakdown of marriages.
Okay, my last question. We are having a caste census in India now.
Yes, sir.
There are a lot of opposition from various sectors.
Yes, sir.
And we are not having it in other states.
Yes, sir.
So what is the philosophy behind this census? What are the pluses and minuses?
So the positives of conducting a caste survey would be equal distribution of benefits among multiple castes. Secondly, there would be a clear enumeration of the different demographic indicators of those castes, so that if there is particular intervention that needs to be taken to protect a particular caste, that can be taken. However, the negatives lie in the administrative difficulty, because if we look in India, there are multiple castes, jati and even sub-jatis, which would be very difficult to note down with accuracy. So that is one con that I can recall of.
Then why the political parties, many political parties are not willing to sort of vouch for this, or they don't want to go ahead?
Yes, sir.
So what you mentioned is only administrative.
Yes, sir.
Anything else behind that?
Yes, so there are apprehensions that the data, which is very sensitive with regard to caste, can be utilized by a political party in terms of mobilization of vote. However, those issues can be addressed if the intention of the party is to serve the people in a better manner.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Your
sir.
interview is over.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll ask you.
Yeah. So Garima, overall you've been okay, but there are one or two suggestions that I would like to make. One, you're shaking too much.
Okay.
It's detracting from your answers.
Okay, ma'am.
You know,
Yes, yes.
and hands, and you're slouching a little bit. So please just sit a little more straight, a little more relaxed, and don't shake so much.
Okay.
It detracts from your overall effectiveness here.
Okay.
So try, practice in front of me. Where is your interview?
17th of March.
If you have time, just practice about sitting a little more calmly.
Okay, ma'am.
And I know your natural way is to talk like that, but try and a little bit, be a little more calmer and less, you know, it looks as if you're agitated. Maybe you are agitated, that's why you're not shaking so much. If you're not, try and practice being a little more still. It will add to your overall personality and the way you answer. And articulation, modulation, little more is required in your voice. And focus on your answer. Sometimes you're going much beyond.
Okay, ma'am.
So don't try and go too much outside of what is being asked, and a little more brushing up of some facts that you would need. You can say, I'm not sure, I don't know, if you don't know. So avoid, in some cases, you're trying to guess, and then ask, take permission before you make a guess. And otherwise, a little more of this effort, if you may talk to yourself in the mirror, write up the points on a different subject. You can't ask for everything.
Yes,
There are so many current topics, and you come from your tabs, you come from current affairs within India, outside, on the international stage. You just keep yourself aware, please, and regularly write down these points, on various subjects that are, on what I've just told you, and just practice talking. Maybe in front of the mirror, that will help you also be a little more calm. Alright? And you'll do well. Just brush up everything and practice if you have time. All the best.
Thank you, ma'am.
So Garima, you have very good content and your presentation is also very good. So formulate more questions, as ma'am was saying. So formulate more questions from there, from your education background, from the work that you have done, and from your hometown. So rest, everything should work, and keep in touch up to, I think you have still 3 weeks of time. So keep up to date with your current affairs, because the panel members might ask on the spot the current affair that would have popped up a day before or on that particular day. So be up to date. Okay. So all the best.
You are an excellent candidate. Make it. Keep a smile on. Wonderful. Pleasure.
Very. You will make it, I'm also sure. Just repeating whatever has been written in your depth, your state, your date of birth, your hobbies, your subject a little more, and anything can come because this is what you have written. Out of that also many things can come, and as ma'am pointed out, just practice your, whatever the way you are answering, and she said you are a bit more shaky, so just work on that also. Okay, all the best.
I totally agree with all my colleagues. My only advice is that you are a girl in a hurry. So slightly slow down and be as brief as possible. Because when you speak so much, तो फिर उसमें से और सवाल पे सवाल निकलते जाएंगे. So collate your thoughts, precise, and finish. Stop.
Okay.
Whenever you feel like it. ठीक है. बहुत बढ़िया. Otherwise, if you are well in your written, you will definitely make it.
You studied in Bihar and then shifted to Delhi.
So I studied in Kirorimal College. I did my graduation.
Schooling was in Bihar.
This was in Bihar.
Yeah, so this perspective, what exactly will happen to rest of the people you left behind. So from that point of view, if you work, it will sell well.
Yes.
So get more into it.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Like
Thank
Ms.
you.
Agni
All
ji,
the best.
Thank you.